Hey YouTube, Freedom for Kaz here. Hey, I'm making this video outdoors today. It's a beautiful Sunday. I just came back from church a little while ago, and I had a great day at church. They had some things going on, a little fair, some things for the kiddies, some hot dogs, free lemonade. It was really, really cool. I really enjoyed going to my church. But I want to talk about something I ran across. I came across the Time magazine. Now, this isn't a shout out for Time magazine, although I did make a video a few weeks ago, also involving a Time magazine. But this magazine, the reason why I picked it up is because it corresponds with the video I made about 2 or 3 weeks ago as well, called "Without the Use of Violence." And basically, what that is, it has to do with the population effects of the world. It has to do with the population effects of North America and Europe, and also how immigration and how the Mideast countries are affecting all this immigration, and what it has to do with the Muslim people and the religion of Islam. So I came across this Time magazine, and it said, "The only child myth." Now, the reason why this is so striking is because the video, "Without the Use of Violence," talks about how the Muslim population and with the religion of Islam is eventually going to become the #1 religion. And this article, which is entitled "One and Done," talks about how the Americans, both the United States and Canada, and the countries in the EU, are rapidly reducing their family sizes to primarily one or two children. Now, I want to read some clips from this article. It says, on average, a child in the U.S. costs his or her parents about $286,000 before college. So basically what they're saying, an average of $286,000 up until high school graduation. I think that's a fair price, although I think there's some moderation in that. But as far as immigration and people who are of Mideastern descent, I know that in some instances that number might be lower due to grants from our government, and also some help that the government also provides to immigrants or people who are here, going to our schools. So that number might be a little lower for those folks as well, but I don't know how much lower it actually is. But the story continues. It's actually a very, very interesting story. It says here that the institute that conducted this survey found that 64% of women polled said that with the economy the way it is, they couldn't afford to have a second child right now. So that also adds to the fact of the one and done theory. It also goes on to say that since the early 1960s, according to the National Center for Health, statistics of a single-child families have almost doubled to about 1 in 5 families, and that's from before the markets crashed back in 2007 and 2008. Birth control has quickly become one of the recession's few growth industries, which is rather interesting. I found, it says, meanwhile, friends and relatives, not to mention supermarket cashiers, pastors, and I've often found strangers on the subway who continue to urge parents of only one child to have another baby. Apparently, a lot of people can see the trend here that there are a lot of families who are having only one child. I only have one child. My brother only has only one child. My cousin only has one child. And with me, it definitely wasn't planned that way, but that's how it worked out. It just happened to be that, in my family, we only had one child. And there's a lot of families who commented, there's a lot of people who commented on my video "Without the Use of Violence" who came from large families, those families are even smaller. So essentially, this magazine is backing up what my first video said, "Without the Use of Violence." Pretty much says it only actually backs up the study. Now the article continues to say, and they're talking about the couple on the front. It says the couple decided to become parents when Leslie, which is the wife, was about 25, but pregnancy didn't come easily. It was years later when Leslie finally conceived, and by the time Briar, which is their son, who is now 9, arrived healthy, The Moors at that time decided that their hard-won baby boy was the one that God meant for them, and that they didn't want to have another one. So pretty much they're only going to have one child because it took them so long because they were having problems with having a child that they only decided to have that one child. And that's kind of the scenario that I was in when I was married. It took my wife at the time and I 7 years to have our one child, and after that we didn't have another child. The study continues to say, it says, in part, this is just one of many exasperating angst about the current low fertility crisis that has the European economists and policy wonks in a panic. In the early 1960s, Europe represented about 20% of the world's population. A century later, those numbers are projected to drop to about 7 to 5%, despite the rise in minority and immigrant birth rates, which again is what my previous video, Without the Use of Violence, says. Between now and 2030, demographers forecast the EU will have lost 13 million people, almost 4% of their population. And of that population, the people will be aged 15 to 64. Meanwhile, the number of people over 65 will increase by more than 40% because there's a separation in the people who are getting older and fewer birth rates, so there's going to be a separation in ages there. It continues to say the study on American motherhood shows a major uptick in the share of births to Hispanic women, who now give birth to 1 in 4 babies born in the United States. That isn't because they're having more babies, it's because the American people are having fewer babies. That's why that statistic has changed. And again, that also says that in my prior video. While white motherhood has declined by 12% since the 1990s, the share of birth to Asian mothers has also increased, though not nearly as dramatically. While African American families, the birth rate has stayed the same. It goes on to say, births to women ages 35 and older grew 64% from 1990 to 2008. So in that 18-year period, the age difference has definitely changed. Now, another reason for this decline in American birth rates, now when we say American, we just don't mean Caucasian or black or this or that. They're talking about all creeds, white, black, you might be Italian, Polish, Spanish, whatever, okay? This isn't a racist video. This is about the differences between the American population and the Muslim population. And my first video, Without the Use of Violence, talks about how Islam will become the #1 religion in the world. But another reason for the American birth rate drop is due to the increase of gay men and women, because gay men and women don't have babies. So when that child is born, that child who does become gay doesn't have any children for the most part. They can adopt, but it's very unlikely that they're going to. Now I'm going to show you some numbers here, and the one that's really going to stick out, I'm going to point to right here, is this 2.1. Okay? 2.1 is the minimum that any direct line of nationality has to maintain for that population to grow. Because if that population drops to 2.0, you're just replacing the people that were born with people who are currently existing, and there's no growth. You have to have at least 2.1 to have minimal growth of a certain creed. So, for instance, in American people, again, as a whole, we need to have 2.1 or greater. Otherwise, if we drop below 2.1, it is true, the Muslim countries and Islam religion will become the greatest religion across the world. I don't mean great as in the best, but I mean great as in quantity of people who are attending those churches and mosques. So this was a very, very interesting article, but again, I want to finish with this, is that reading this whole article, the overall view makes it seem like as if it's okay that American families only have one child. And the reason why I say that is this whole page right here is dedicated to successful people who were only children, including Elvis Presley on the bottom there, who was an only child. So it's kind of a strange article. I'm using it for a different reference, but the reference of the article says that for Americans, it's okay to have just one child, which I'm kind of shocked to find out that they actually said that, because it's not okay, because we do have a Muslim president. And by having a Muslim president, knowing how quickly the Muslims are reproducing and the Mideastern countries are reproducing their offspring, this could mean danger. It's grave danger for the EU, and it's very, very dangerous for the United States and Canada. I'll leave the links below. Obviously, I can't leave the link to the magazine, but this is the July 19th, 2010 edition. It's in the newsstands now. You can pick it up. Hey, have a great weekend. It's a beautiful day. Get out there and enjoy it. We'll talk to you later.